Going to be on the narrative theory and the subtle and undercover techniques of narrative as art, which do obviously aim to control, may seduce people into letting their guard down. The rise of mass media, which lends themselves more to stories and sermons, strengthens the position of expressive culture. Expressive forms, including narrative form, might as well increasingly important roles in social control. Should this occur with the study of narrative will become increasingly relevant to the student of today, says Colby and Peacock in 1973. A decade later, Walter Fisher, a professor at the Edinburgh School for Communication, introduced a narrative paradigm to communication theory. Today, we will talk about the relation of reason and storytelling and how they correlate. As a young student filmmaker and screenwriter, the narrative theory is something that I often research and deal with in my own work. So by learning more about the narrative paradigm, you will see how storytelling is a major part of reasoning and communication. First, I will speak about Walter Fisher's assumptions towards his theory. Second, I will examine the 5 elements of a good story. And last but not least, the importance of narrative coherence and fidelity. Okay. Okay, so that's Walter Fisher. And something that Walter Fisher says, he said it in 1980, is that symbolic action, words, and or deeds that have sequence and meaning for those who live, create, or interpret them. Pretty much what he's trying to say is that through his theory, he basically states that people are essentially storytellers. We make decisions on the basis of good reasons. Our history, biography, culture, character, and character determine what we consider are these good reasons, and how narrative rationality determines by the coherence and fidelity of our stories. Okay, people in society tell stories to relate, to express one's day. That's pretty much all we do when we converse within communication. We do it all the time. When you're talking about your day, you pretty much always tell a story. When it comes to Fisher, he says that pretty much everything we converse is a story, except for jokes and emphatic communication, which is pretty much just like hey. So, okay, so the 5 elements that make a good story are conflict, character, beginnings, middles, and ends. For example, the story of Little Red Riding Hood. Okay, the beginning, she has to take food to her grandmother who happens to be sick. Then the story towards the middle, when developed, the more characters introduced. She goes to the woods where she finds the wolf. The wolf keeps on stalling. Then, tension builds. Little Red Riding Hood keeps getting stalked by the wolf. Wolf goes to the grandmother's home, and then you have this whole part where he's like, oh, how big your ears are, and the end climax is when she pretty much gets eaten by the wolf and her grandmother too. And that's also the middle. The ends is when the lumberjack comes to the rescue. Okay. So darn it. Okay, so so by any chance, have any of you guys seen Good Will Hunting? Okay. Do you guys know that part where he's talking about when he met his wife? I wanted to show that clip, but could I? Okay.
day? Oh, yeah. It was Game 6 of the World Series. Biggest game in Red Sox history? Yeah, sure. My friends and I slept out on the sidewalk all night to get tickets.
You got tickets?
Day of the game. We're sitting in the bar waiting for the game to start. And he walks this girl. It was an amazing game. At the bottom of the 8th, Carlo tied it up at 6-6. Went to 12. Bottom of the 12th.
Good stand.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got that good stand.
Yeah, yeah. He clocks it, you know. High ball on the left field line. 35,000 people on their feet, yelling at the ball. That's not because he's waving at the ball like a madman. Get over! And then it hits the foul pole. Oh, he goes there and 35,000 fans. You know, they charge the field, you know? Yeah, he's fucking blowing up. Get over it! You fucking believe you're at tickets in that fucking game? Yeah. Did you rush the field? No, I didn't rush the fucking field. I wasn't there. What? No, I was in the bar having a drink with my future wife.
You missed Pudge Fist's home run?
Oh, yeah.
To have a fucking drink with some lady you never met?
Yeah, but you should have seen her. She was a stunner.
I don't care if
Oh, no, she lit up the room.
I don't care if Helen and Troy watched it.
Helen and Troy.
6. Oh my God, and who are these fucking friends of yours? They let you get away with that?
They had to.
Well, what did you say to them?
They slid my ticket across the table and I said, sorry guys, I gotta see about a girl.
I gotta see about a girl. Yeah, that's what you said. And they let you get away with that?
Oh, yeah, they saw my eyes and I meant it. You kidding me? No, I'm not kidding you. Well, that's why I'm not talking right now about some girl I saw about 20 years ago and how I always regretted not going home and talking to her. I don't regret the 18 years I was married to Nancy. I don't regret the 6 years I had to give up counseling when she got sick. I don't regret the last years when she got really sick. I'm sure as hell don't regret missing a damn game. That's for that.
Wow.
Okay, so as you guys see there, well, all of us, whenever we discuss our daily lives, pretty much we always tend to tell stories. That's pretty much what the theory is all about. And, you know, we probably all don't do it as well as in this scene with Robert Williams, but we all tend to do it all the time. Now that we have discussed Walter Fisher's theory and 5 elements of a good story, we will discuss the narrative coherence and fidelity, and which is most important part in reasoning when it comes to his theory. Okay, so narrative coherence is pretty much like asking your boyfriend what he did on the weekend. You know, you ask him what he did, doesn't make sense, you know not to trust him. Okay, and that's pretty much it is. Whenever you hear a story, if there's facts, there's anything that doesn't go, you know, the author, he pretty much misses a big cue in the plot, or, you know, things just don't make sense. That's one of the things that we're good at when it comes to telling a good story, making sure that things make sense. Now to go towards, as coherence deals with the possible errors in the story, fidelity strikes the core of the audience. That's pretty much just the emotional part of the narrative. Pretty much, it's when this is a part where, you know, it all seems believable to you because you relate to the character, and the character situation is something that could possibly happen to you. So those are the ways that stories are seen to be believable. And so in conclusion, I've already spoken about Fisher's ideas behind narrative theory and the 5 elements of a good story, and narrative coherence and fidelity. Now that you have an understanding of narrative theory, I hope you see the concept behind it and the perception in life and reasoning. So that is how you're a great critic and live life on the concept of narrative.